One thing that I find a really interesting concept, and I'm curious what you would think about this, is the idea of sort of taking that in stages so that initially, instead of, you still may go through the fact finding process to kind of pick a number initially that gives you the whole overview, and then possibly back up and say, okay, now if you then take a second look and say, like, okay, this was what you think you would need to live on to continue your current lifestyle. But if you scaled that back, then the cost of living would be this
Yes.
much. And maybe
Yes.
first goal is to get into a safety zone of, you've invested enough that you could live in a more frugal way on what you have if you needed to. And now if you choose to continue to work and build that, then you can get to this other number, but you're now in a safety zone. I'm curious if that's something that you think is a
Yeah,
useful.
it's so okay. Well, like I explained to you about that client who had made very little, but she saved a little bit all the time. My wife used to do something. She still does it. She'll take money and she'll put it in pockets here and there, all over the place. I take her jackets and I'm pulling out 20s and 50s and fives or whatever. So I'd call it the pockets theory of saving. There's no one place where you're going to accomplish everything that you want to do. Even if you just took an envelope and say, okay, I've got this goal. I want to buy a car. Start putting money in that envelope for the car. It doesn't mean that that's going to accomplish everything you want to accomplish, but you have to have some sort of organization around all of the things that you want to accomplish in your life in order to first of all, keep it conscious for you that it is something that you're working on in an organized way. So you don't necessarily trying to do it all the time. But if you take one or two actions a day on different goals that you have, over time, it's going to make a huge difference. So, it's breaking it down to a day-to-day actions that you take can make a huge difference itself. I hope that answers your question, but it's kind of how I look at it is, we have the opportunity on a day-to-day basis to change our futures.
Wonderful.
So that brings up another topic, which is, I mean, it's related, and you alluded to that earlier, and that's dealing with debt. And as you mentioned, it can take a little while to get out of debt. What is your approach to debt reduction, particularly for people who have a high debt load?
So debt is a very difficult thing for anyone to deal with. It weighs on your shoulders. It just brings you down. So I'm a strong advocate of getting out of debt above anything else. The way I recommend going to taking care of debt is to make a list of all the debts that you have. And I would look to see how you can eliminate items off that list. So first of all, it's important to look at the higher rates on debts that you have. And it's also important to try to eliminate any of the items. So if you have some items on there that, for instance, smaller items, and you could pay those off, great, pay it off. Giving yourself a sense of accomplishment that that's what you're up to is probably as important as anything else. But those debts that have higher interest rates, reducing those interest rates, maybe finding something that you can refinance at a lower rate is important. The idea, though, is keep that list, and you should make it a mission to complete and end that cycle of debt in your life. And student loans is a big part of it. I don't know what rates are on student loans these days. Set up a plan where you're going to pay it off. That's my approach to it.